If vinegar is made from an alcoholic substance, why are pickled foods so prevalent in Middle Eastern cuisine when those countries are largely Muslim? 1. Alcohol is not necessarily haram. Wine is, but generally, the prohibition is on becoming drunk. I guess it depends on who you ask, but consuming stuff like alcoholic vanilla extracts is generally okay. 2. If you let sugar ferment without oxygen, it becomes alcohol. If you let it ferment with oxygen, it becomes vinegar. You don't need to pass through a stage of having an alcoholic drink in order to make vinegar. I think chemically, it might be an intermediate step, but that is not something that people were really aware of historically. 3. You can pickle vegetables in brine, which induces the fermentation by lactic acid-producing bacteria. You don't need vinegar to pickle things. Salt is enough. 4. Non-Muslims are a substantial minority in a lot of Muslim areas and have been more substantial in the past. These people have been producing and eating haram foods for millennia and have a lot of influence on local cultures. The reason alcoholic drinks are haram is because they make you drunk, not because they contain substances that fall under the alcohol chemical compounds. Even so, a drink that contains small amount of alcohol is still not haram if they don't make you drunk no matter how much you drink. For example, sobia. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it's something along the lines of, anything that prevents you from remembering the word of God is forbidden. You would have to drink a lot of vinegar to forget the word of God. When alcoholic beverages like wine come into contact with oxygen, acetobacter bacteria convert the ethanol into acetic acid vinegar. Therefore, there is no alcohol left, only vinegar. It's not alcoholic. Pickling uses vinegar, which is a different type of fermentation. You aerate it, it gets oxygenated and turns into vinegar instead of booze. It's true that vinegar can come from alcoholic substances, but in many Middle Eastern cuisines, they often use vinegar that's made from halal sources like dates or apples. Plus, pickling is such an ancient method of preservation that it's become part of the culture. A fake if a single haram ingredient interacts with even the smallest part of the halal ingredients, the whole thing is ruined. It is not universally the case that if large quantities of something are haram, this is also true of very small quantities. One view is alcohol is haram because Allah SWT says so, because of what is written in Sahih Muslim 2052. Vinegar is halal. If you have some edge case like vinegar with a substantial amount of alcohol, kombucha, ask a sheikh and do whatever they say. Or if you are more into the theology, alcohol is haram because it intoxicates you. Trace amounts of alcohol remaining in food do not intoxicate you. No reasonable amount of vinegar is intoxicating. Theologian Ibrahim an-Nakhai said you can drink fermented drinks with the potential to intoxicate you, basically in moderation. There's a lot of debate about vinegar in the Middle Eastern world for precisely this reason. Yogurt is fermented and they still eat it, so I don't see why they can't eat stuff with vinegar. Cocoa beans are also fermented, but chocolate isn't haram as far as I know. Alcohol references specifically ethanol, whereas vinegar is acetic acid which has an alcohol group on it, but isn't the same chemical as what makes people drunk. Alcohols in chemistry, and by extension food science, have a much wider range than just the stuff you're used to for drinking. Acetic acid being made from alcohol is but one way to produce it. There are other ways to make it, such as the oxidation of butane or butene for example. There are more ways than just those two ways as well. There are two major interpretations as there is no one unique religious leader. If it can't make you drunk, it's okay. If there was trace of alcohol, it's not okay. Vinegar is not alcoholic. Plant matter yeast alcohol acetic acid bacteria vinegar, or plain sugar acetic acid bacteria vinegar acetic acid bacteria convert sugar and alcohol into vinegar. You don't need sugar and alcohol. You only need one of them. Well, what else can they do with all the fermented alcohol that they aren't allowed to drink? Number 2 is incorrect. There is no way to turn sugar straight into vinegar. You can't create vinegar without alcohol. Vinegar literally means sour wine. You make alcohol, then acetobacter converts the alcohol to vinegar. And yes, people knew this, because they would take wine and add the mother a disc of acetobacter that forms in natural made vinegar to accelerate the process. Vinegar isn't necessarily made from alcoholic substances. https://n.wikipedia.org Wiki non-brewed condiment. Okay, that can't legally be called vinegar, but I doubt if many people could tell the difference. Try going to a coffee bar in Turkey. A bunch of Muslims getting high on caffeine and sugar. Oxidation of alcohol becomes vinegar, so the alcohol changes state, but there are more ways to make it than that. Also, the Muslim world is incredibly diverse, and alcohol consumption has been common amongst some Muslims forever. I don't know for sure, but my sense is that the current Muslim world is as a whole a bit more conservative about this stuff than it was, say, 100 years ago. Muslims invented the distillation of wine, and most countries that were influenced by the Muslim Caliphate or the Ottoman Empire have some variant of a strong distilled alcoholic drink. In the Balkans, this is of course rakijat. Islam is much more nuanced and diverse than the Wahhabi or Brotherhood-linked atrocity a lot of Westerners believe is real Islam.